10 most underrated Batman animated movies explored in great detail. Imagine a restaurant that makes the best burgers in town, but it doesn't make an effort to promote it strongly enough and few people know about it. Well, that's pretty much been the case when it comes to Warner Bros. Handling the Batman animated movies. The fans know too well that the Batman animated movie world is a hidden gem that houses some classics. However, many of these fascinating movies ended up being criminally underrated because the promotions were rather disappointing. The animation geniuses at Warner Bros. Did a fabulous job, and armed with some entirely original storylines, they were simply unstoppable. Some of these animated movies are adaptations of graphic novels, some are simply standalone narratives, while others are set in the universe that has been established in live-action flicks. We have no doubt in our mind that in many ways the animated Batman movies surpass the live-action attempts. Few other fictional heroes could match up to the Caped Crusader, but some unforgettable villains to the dark and grim world of Gotham City is the setting. In this video, we bring to you some of these unsung heroes, the stunning movies that could have been insanely popular if only Warner Bros. Animation treated them as genuine films and arranged for a theatrical distribution. Moral of the story, guys, if you are the best at something, make sure you let everyone know about it.
Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin.
Batman Year 1, 2011. We are big fans of devotion to the source material, and this movie does everything right, as it adapts Frank Miller's graphic novel. The story picks up with both Bruce Wayne and James Gordon moving to Gotham City. While Bruce has mastered the art of fighting crime and has returned to the city after 12 years in training, Gordon has been transferred from Chicago. Both are disgusted with the corruption and violence in the city, and Bruce decides to fight crime in the city as Batman. The duo develops an alliance, and they are soon joined by additional friends to help their efforts. Both Batman and Gordon have their own ways to deal with the failing system, but they ultimately want the same thing: a peaceful Gotham City. One of the first things that you will notice about this film is the sharp and intelligent dialogues. All the characters are well written, and Gordon in particular steals the show in this one. He could have been somewhat bland, but they make him very interesting. The movie is narrated from the perspective of Gordon, and the story is taken right back to its origin. We get to see how Bruce Wayne transforms into Batman, and the directors Sam Liu and Lauren Montgomery leave no stone unturned, while trying to imbibe Miller's depth into the characters. Even in the absence of some mystifying master villain, there is never a let-up in the suspense. The plot is realistic, and the hard-hitting narrative doesn't allow you to miss the elaborate gadgets or flamboyance of Batman. It is so easy for animated flicks to go overboard with the designs, but this one is perfectly balanced with a subtle touch. The only thing we didn't love about this movie is how they rushed through Catwoman. We must spare a word for some terrific voice acting. Bryan Cranston is impressive as Gordon, and Ben McKenzie is emotive and powerful enough to play Bruce Wayne. The animated movie was almost about to be adapted as a live-action flick before Warner Bros. Decided to scrap it for Christopher Nolan's Batman Begins. As terrific as Nolan's efforts were, we would have loved to see this one as well. Batman Gotham Knight 2008. This is a 6-part anthology collection, and it is a collection of a few key events that signify the development of Bruce Wayne as he goes from a rookie crime fighter to a pro. In many ways, this was a sequel to Christopher Nolan's The Dark Knight. The anime influence is obvious, and it is largely because of the creative team, which comprised Japanese artists. The first story shows a group of kids sharing their encounters with Batman. It goes on to show how Batman represents an icon more than a person for these kids. The next story is about 2 policemen who get caught in the middle of a nasty gang war.
I'll kill her! I swear to God!
No, you won't.
The third short, titled Field Test, depicts the perils of technology if it ends up too powerful. Fox has developed something for Batman, but he wonders if it is worth putting others' lives at risk. In the story titled In Darkness Dwells, Scarecrow and Killer Croc kidnap a priest, and the fifth story is a brief throwback to all the training that Bruce went through to become Batman. The last short is called Deadshot, and it has the titular sniper hunting down his new target in Gotham City as Batman takes him on. This anthology is a gentle reminder of why Batman has been in the limelight of pop culture for such a long time. It asserts the status of Batman as a crime-fighting icon for the people of Gotham. The stories explore his psyche as well, and this influences his crime-fighting style in a big way. It is amazing how all the 6 shorts have different animation styles and themes. Some of the stories, such as Deadshot and In Darkness Dwells, are largely action-packed, while some others are a bit slower. These are the ones that focus on the personality of Batman, and it creates the image that we all have of this masked vigilante. The likes of Field Test and Working Through Pain have some thought-provoking storylines that can even outweigh the glamour of action. The music used is simply exhilarating, and the rousing themes add to the ambience. Kevin Conroy as Batman can never go wrong, and he brings in the finesse that enhances the personality of the hero. The stories often focus on other characters, but there are a few that are all about Batman and his fight against evil. In short, this is a valuable addition to the Batman animated franchise, and the Batman fans might enjoy this unique blend of Batman and anime. Batman Assault on Arkham 2014. Riddler is up to his usual antics and has some secret information involving the top secret Task Force X. When he threatens to make it public, Amanda Waller assembles a squad comprising captured supervillains. Before she can have Riddler killed, Batman captures him and gets him to Arkham Asylum. Now Deadshot leads the unlikely alliance of supervillains into the facility. They are tasked with retrieving the information held by Riddler. However, there is plenty of double-crossing and hidden agendas that are working within the group. Meanwhile, Batman has other concerns because the Joker has planted a deadly bomb that is a great threat to Gotham City.
What are they talking about?
Joker stole a dirty bomb and hid it somewhere in Gotham.
When they all converge on Arkham Asylum, things get pretty ugly and not all of them are going to come out alive. The events in this movie follow the events of Batman Arkham Origins video game, and the game designs for characters like Bane and Poison Ivy have been retained. The title might be misleading because the story only has Batman for about 1/3 of the entire duration. Instead, it brings in the members of the Suicide Squad, and we get to see some fun villains and the hilarious interactions between them. Batman is reserved for a few special occasions, but that doesn't affect the fun part of the narrative one bit. The writing is intelligent, and there is plenty of dark humor to go around. The animation is meticulously done, and the highly atmospheric setup is made colorful with rich background detail. It is fairly mature content with loads of violence and cussing. There are some graphic scenes with exploding heads, and there is even a lovemaking scene in the mix of things. But it is all part of the script, and none of this is forced into the story. Kevin Conroy is definitive as ever as Batman, and we were impressed with Troy Baker's portrayal of Joker. However, the movie does come with a few flaws. Black Spider is certainly a weak link in the story, and his underdeveloped character doesn't help the cause. Oh, and one last thing, Batman's pupils bothered us a bit because it simply doesn't work that way. The movie could have helped itself with a longer duration, but besides such minor hiccups, this has a unique plot to die for. You will find yourself rooting for the bad guys all along, and that certainly is out of the ordinary. Batman Ninja 2018. Here we have a Batman story premised in feudal Japan. Clearly time travel is in play, and it is all courtesy of Gorilla Grodd's time displacement machine. It has transported some of the worst adversaries of Batman to feudal Japan, and even the Dark Knight and one of his allies have been shifted there. Now these dreaded villains have become notorious feudal lords, with Joker leading the pack. The high-tech weapon system of Batman is of no use anymore, and he has to rely totally on his intellect. He is helped by some trusted allies such as the Catwoman, and they must restore normalcy in this madness. Eventually, they also have to find their way to present-day Gotham City. There are fans who appreciate good anime, and there are many who love Batman movies. Batman Ninja caters to both sides, with a few anime tropes mixed in with an intriguing story involving Batman. Things do get somewhat weird, but not in a bad way. Does this conform to the dark, gothic mythos of the Dark Knight? It most certainly does not. But there is something enjoyable about the absurdity in the narrative. The Japanese writers crafted a Batman story that was more suited for the Japanese audiences, but they also wanted to cater to the Western fans. Such mix-ups usually do not end well, but Batman Ninja is not the worst effort. The story involving time travel might be a tad bit generic, but it is still very entertaining. One of the funny things about this movie is the animation style. Since 3 anime studios were involved with the making, you can notice 3 different anime styles clashing. There are some gorgeous moments, but the movie couldn't eliminate a few outrageous ones. We have some exciting fight scenes, but a few action sequences are outright ridiculous. When the giant robots and samurai sword fight breaks out, you don't know whether to like it or hate it. Initially, the fans were led to believe that the film would not release with the original Japanese dub. The English script is not accurate and the English dubbing is not the finest. Overall, Batman Ninja is not for everyone, and maybe the die-hard Batman fans with a taste for anime might appreciate what is on offer. Batman and Harley Quinn, 2017. Batman teaming up with Harley Quinn is possibly one of the most unlikely of alliances, but circumstances are such that this pairing becomes inevitable. It all starts when Batman and Nightwing find out that Poison Ivy and Floronic Man have some evil plans up their sleeve. They have kidnapped a scientist named Dr. Harold Goldblum, and he could help them with some crucial information on Swamp Thing's birth. This would allow them to turn everyone into plant people, and this could threaten life on Earth.
Every single person on this planet will have a vested interest in going green.
Meanwhile, Nightwing discovers that Harley is trying to live a normal life after her troubled past, and she is working as a waitress at a restaurant. She is convinced to help them make Ivy stop her crazy plans. Will Joker's girlfriend be a helpful ally and stop a potential global catastrophe? This is somewhat different from the usual dark theme of the Batman animated movies. Their narrative will put a smile on your face, and it is consistently very funny. The director, Sam Liu, is the same guy who made the controversial The Killing Joke. While he might have disappointed with his last Batman adaptation, he more than makes up for it with this one. The involvement of Bruce Timm, the one responsible for Batman the Animated Series, surely helps the cause. It is his original story, and there is a brief revisit to the style of Batman the Animated Series when it comes to the animation. Comedic elements in the movie are unmistakable, and the narrative is blessed with some impeccable comic timing. The action sequences are well choreographed, and the voice acting steals the show in the presence of some greats. Kevin Conroy is the perfect Batman, and he explores his funny bones a bit for this one. Melissa Roach does a good job as the new voice actress for Harley, and she has some really funny lines to pull off. If you have appreciated Bruce Timm's style of work in the 90s, this one will be a stunning throwback with plenty of laughs for the perfect movie night.
Batman, Gotham by Gaslight, 2018. This is a curious addition to the Batman animated movie universe because the story is a reimagination of Batman in the Victorian era. Bruce Wayne is the vigilante in Victorian Gotham City, and the notorious serial killer Jack the Ripper is on the prowl. He preys on the unfortunate residing in the underbelly of Gotham and slaughters the poor and destitute women. The problem is that the citizens soon start to believe that Batman and Jack the Ripper are the same person. Now Batman must carefully pick up the bloody trail left behind by the killer. To make matters worse, he even gets arrested suspected of being Jack the Ripper, and Harvey Dent prosecutes him. Batman manages to stage a prison fight and escapes from confinement, but he is soon haunted by an unexpected finding. Gordon, the police commissioner, might be hiding a few skeletons in his closet. Will Batman prevail over Jack the Ripper in this Victorian-era murder mystery? The movie is based on the graphic novel of the same name, but director Sam Liu and screenwriter Jim Krieg have introduced a few changes from the source material. The basic premise is retained, and the subtle changes are smartly introduced. It is not exactly the action-adventure kind of story that we see in Batman movies, and instead, it pans out like a noir detective story. There are plenty of Conan Doyle references, and Batman admits to have been mentored by legendary detective Sherlock Holmes. The what-if story pits Bruce Wayne against Jack the Ripper in the 19th century Gotham. While it is easy to trash the concept as silly, the execution is sincere enough. Batman is still a masked vigilante in 1890, but his methods are cruder than usual. The animation is a treat to watch, and it shines the brightest in the action scenes. The simple art style and flat colors go well with the overall theme, and intriguing detective story unfolds just like it should. In terms of voice acting, Canadian actor Bruce Greenwood does have the vocal variations to play Batman, but he does not sound like Kevin Conroy. The others are at best mediocre in their efforts. One thing the movie does well is not to overplay the Victorian elements and take the focus away from the main story. The twist towards the end of the movie could have been better, but it doesn't spoil the experience at all. Gotham by Gaslight is a gripping murder mystery that is a must-watch for those seeking a different take on the usual portrayal of Batman. Batman Soul of the Dragon 2021. Unlike some of the other Batman animated flicks, this one is not based on a specific comic book, and it has an original plot. The story begins a few years after Bruce Wayne has traveled all across the world to master his fighting skills to eliminate the evil forces. One of his fellow students of martial arts, Richard Dragon, comes to his mansion for his help. They need to seek out two other fellow students to deal with a new threat. Their martial arts master has been missing under mysterious circumstances, and things take a drastic turn when a cursed relic resurfaces. Jeffrey Burr, the leader of a dangerous snake cult, wants to begin his evil game, and Bruce must fight alongside his team to prevent the cultists from attacking.
Richard, Shiva, get topside.
They also have an old score to settle because their master deserves justice for what has been done to him. When the kung fu genre flourished during the 70s with the likes of Bruce Lee, DC followed the trend with some new characters that were skilled in martial arts. Even Batman was modified to be a martial artist, and this film is a throwback to that golden era. The combination of Sam Liu and Bruce Timm is always promising, and they deliver the goods once again with this entertaining drama loaded with action and a gripping story. There is a lot of focus on characters, and Batman is always under scrutiny despite the fact that the story is more about Bruce Wayne. The narrative explores the darker elements of Bruce's psyche and how even with his alter ego Batman, he still battles incredible anger within himself. The battle with his own soul is intense, and we love David Giantoli's vocal range successfully fluctuating from Bruce to Batman. Richard Dragon is voiced by notable martial artist and action star Mark Dacascos, and he brings in a lot of charm and wit to the character. The detailing in the animation is fascinating, and the makers have perfected the clothing and styling of the 70s. The sequences involving martial arts are well executed, and the narrative offers endless entertainment. Many will argue that this is not essentially a Batman movie in the truest sense of the term, but nobody can deny how enjoyable it is. Batman: Death in the Family 2020. The fans of Batman comics are well aware of how huge the storyline of Death in the Family is. When the comic book came along, the writer Dennis O'Neil suggested that readers should determine the fate of Todd by voting on whether he lives or dies. This interactive Batman movie takes a similar approach, and it is actually a retelling of the 2010 film titled Batman Under the Red Hood. Batman believes that Jason Todd has become a bit too aggressive, and he suspends him from his crime-fighting role as Robin.
Needed him. He would have talked, but you put him into shock.
Jason is angered, and he leaves Gotham only to reunite with Batman once again when a major crisis arises. The viewers get to make choices at some of the key moments, and this decides how the story pans out. For instance, when Jason Todd dies in the explosion as in the original movie, the viewer has multiple options to pick. You can choose Robin cheats death or Batman saves Robin, and you can also pick Robin dies and the following events will unfold accordingly. Unless you pick the last one, you will witness a completely new turn of events, and Batman Saves Robin has the longest and possibly the most interesting story. The movie marks Bruce Greenwood's return as the Batman, and we were pretty impressed with his convincing act. Even John DiMaggio is reliable as Joker, and voice acting boosts the quality of this movie. There are both upsides and downsides to allowing fans to decide the fate of a character. Yes, they feel involved with the project, but they also lose the element of surprise. DC and Warner Bros. Decided to make Death in the Family an interactive movie, and it was an innovative move. According to the poll back in 1988, the fans voted for Jason Todd to die, but he was later resurrected and he became the Red Hood. This is presented as a 5-episode film, and all the episodes are quite enjoyable. The only genuine issue with the narrative is a bit of a time crunch. The complexities of the plot are vast, and the short duration does not do justice to such an elaborate setup. This might not have catered to everyone's taste, but we find it to be a fascinating addition to the legacy of Batman animated movies. Batman: Return of the Caped Crusaders 2016. This movie is based on the 60s Batman TV series, and the story sets off as Bruce and Dick Grayson are seen enjoying their favorite show at Wayne Manor. Soon they are shocked to find that Joker, the Penguin, the Riddler, and Catwoman have replaced the band that was supposed to play on the show. As they spring into action, they discover that the baddies have teamed up to rob the Acme Atomic Energy Laboratory of the replication ray, which, as the name suggests, can duplicate anything. The task to track down 4 notorious villains takes a toll on Batman's mental health, and he fires Alfred.
You're dismissed. For the night. Forever.
Meanwhile, Joker, Penguin, and the Riddler decide to get rid of Catwoman because of her feelings for Batman. She is saved by Batman and Robin, and now she helps them defeat her former allies. But Batman is slowly turning more and more aggressive, and there might be more to the twisted plan of the villains. Can they replicate themselves as well? This movie is dedicated to those fans who appreciated the campy and goofy nature of Batman in the 60s series. The likes of Adam West and Burt Ward returned for this project, and it is a lot about the nostalgia associated with the bygone era. In fact, shortly after completing this movie, the legendary Adam West breathed his last. We love the idea of Batman, Robin, and Catwoman being voiced by the original actors from the 60s. The story might be somewhat wacky, but the idea of 4 of the most dreaded Batman villains coming together is intriguing enough. They have planned the crime of the century, and when Batman turns into a negative version of himself, things go completely out of order. There is something enjoyable about everything ridiculous in the narrative. From the hilarious one-liners to the outrageous situations, everything begs to not take the movie seriously. The villain designs are something we haven't seen in ages, and every aspect about this movie is loyal to the original series. If you are one of those who cannot tolerate anything other than the dark, grim image for Batman, this movie is not meant for you. Batman: Mystery of the Batwoman 2003. The Dark Knight has to deal with a new menace in Gotham City. There is a destructive vigilante who is posing as Batwoman, and her antics have caught everyone's attention. Penguin has planned something sinister, and this ruthless vigilante decides to foil his plans. When Batman tries to find out the real identity of the new Batwoman, he discovers that she has been captured by Bane. Now the Caped Crusader must rescue her from the vicious Bane and also ensure that Penguin's plans fail. It has been a feature of many other Batman animated movies that they come across as an extension of some specific show. This movie is somewhat based on the new Batman Adventures in 1997, and the narrative doesn't waste any time in setting up the characters. It gets straight to all the action, but the plot still feels cinematic though. The element of mystery is prevalent through the narrative, and the climax might end up surprising you big time. The script is tight enough, and it never reveals the identity of the mysterious Batwoman till the very end. The animation is pretty decent, and the voice acting is simply too good with the evergreen Kevin Conroy as Batman. It does lack the kind of depressing and dark atmosphere that many expect from a Batman flick, but the haunting musical score somewhat makes up for it. The light tone of the movie doesn't do much damage, and it ends up being a satisfying watch. Is it right up there among the best Batman animated movies? It is surely not, but it is certainly an enjoyable movie that you will not regret watching. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks everyone.